What the hell is going on in my warehouses? That's what Silas Langford muttered to himself as he stared at the latest batch of customer complaints laid out across his desk. Damaged shipments, late deliveries, missing inventory. And all of it tied to the same cluster of locations, specifically warehouses number 9 through 14. Silas hadn't built the company himself, his father had. But after inheriting the business 5 years ago, he worked hard to grow it from a small family operation into a 14-location freight and logistics chain spread across 3 states. The problem? He'd gotten too comfortable behind his desk. He'd been relying on reports from district managers and monthly performance summaries for too long. They told him what he wanted to hear, not what he needed to know, so without telling anyone, Silas had a plan. He shaved his beard, dyed his hair a dull brown, and threw on a pair of thick-rimmed glasses. Nobody outside of upper leadership had ever met him in person. And at these warehouses, where turnover was high and faces changed every other month, no one would suspect a thing. He called himself Derek, a new temp with barely any warehouse experience. Warehouse 11 was his first stop. He picked it for a reason: it had the most incidents in the last quarter. When he arrived, the place looked like it hadn't seen a mop in weeks. The loading dock smelled like sweat and stale coffee, and 2 of the 3 forklifts sat broken near the back wall. A tired-looking woman with a clipboard approached him. "You the new guy?" "Yeah, Derek," he said, adjusting his fake glasses. "Whatever, I'm Tanya, I'm the manager here. You'll be on unloading crew with the night shift. Be here at 6 sharp, don't be late." That was it. No introduction, no safety training, no questions, just tossed into the grinder. The night shift was a skeleton crew, just 5 people to unload 2 full trailers. That's where he met Marcus. Big guy, wore a faded hoodie, steel-toe boots that looked 2 years past dead, and kept moving like he was chasing time. "You knew?" Marcus asked as he hoisted a box onto a pallet. "Yeah, just started," Marcus nodded. "It's not hard, just fast. They won't say thank you, but they'll notice if you slow down." For the next hour they worked side by side. No breaks, no small talk, just the rhythm of unloading and stacking. Then Silas noticed Marcus rubbing his wrist. "You all right?" Marcus gave a tired laugh. "Nah, just sore. Been at my other job since 7 this morning. This is my 2nd shift." Silas blinked. "You work another warehouse job?" "Not warehouse. Mornings I clean offices downtown, then afternoons I do Uber, then here from 6 to midnight." Silas nearly dropped the box in his hands. "You work 3 jobs," Marcus shrugged. "Gotta cover rent and my kids' daycare. Company cut our hours here last month, said payroll was tight." Silas clenched his jaw. He didn't remember approving any hour cuts. "Do you ever sleep?" Silas asked. Marcus laughed again, but this time it sounded bitter. "On Sundays. Sometimes." The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Silas noticed more things now: how the break room had no AC, the vending machines were empty, and everyone looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. No one talked to Tanya. She stayed in her office, staring at her phone. By midnight, Silas was drenched in sweat and sore in places he didn't know could be sore. As he climbed into his car, he looked back at the warehouse. Something was broken here. And this time it was personal. The next night, Silas returned to Warehouse 11 just before 6. The air outside was thick and humid. Inside, it was worse. One of the standing fans from the docking bay had vanished, no explanation, no replacement. The only thing circulating was stale heat and quiet resentment. Marcus arrived a few minutes later, dragging his feet slightly. His hoodie was different, but just as worn. He didn't say anything at first, just gave a nod and grabbed a pallet jack. Silas followed him to the back, where 2 trailers waited to be emptied. The others on the shift, Kenny, Lewis, and Shonda, gathered sluggishly around the first load. No one looked energized. Shonda had dark circles under her eyes. Kenny kept cracking his neck like it could snap free the exhaustion. Lewis leaned against the wall until Tanya barked from the office window. "Clock in and move. That trailer's been sitting there since noon." She didn't come out to help, just vanished behind the glass again. As they started unloading, Silas noticed a new guy barely in his 20s, tattoos down his forearms, name tag read Drew. Marcus motioned toward him. He's been here 3 days, already talking about quitting. Silas approached Drew while stacking boxes. Rough first week, Drew glanced over, then looked back at the trailer. It's not the work, it's the people running this place. They don't care if we're drowning. What do you mean? I asked for gloves the first day, said I'd pay for them myself. Tanya told me to bring my own. Same thing when I asked about safety vests. Silas paused. They don't provide gear. Drew shook his head. Nope. Kenny sliced his hand on a busted pallet yesterday, wrapped it in paper towels and kept loading. He turned and dropped his voice. Don't say anything. They'll cut your hours if you complain. That night, Silas worked harder than he had in his entire adult life. Every box felt heavier than the last. His back ached. His fingers went numb halfway through the second trailer. But he kept going, kept watching. Around 10:30, Lewis tripped over a loose coil of shrink wrap near the loading dock. He hit the ground hard. Everyone froze. Tanya stayed in the office. Silas knelt beside him. You all right? Lewis sat up slowly, wincing. Twisted my ankle. Damn thing's been sitting there for 2 days. Told her about it yesterday. You need medical attention? I'll wrap it when I get home. If I leave now, they'll dock my hours this week. Silas stood and stared at the office window. Nothing. Tanya didn't even look up. When their shift ended, Silas helped Lewis hobble to the parking lot. Marcus waited nearby, quietly finishing a protein bar. You seeing all this? Marcus asked, voice low. Silas nodded once. Yeah, you gonna stick around? I think I have to. The following evening brought rain. The roof leaked in 2 places, one near the loading bay, another over the break table in the back. Kenny had put down a plastic bin to catch the drips. Tanya hadn't acknowledged it. As they worked through another double trailer, Silas noticed a pattern. Tanya never left her chair, not once. Every instruction came through the crackling speaker above the dock. When Drew asked for clarification on a damaged order, she ignored him. When Marcus needed a second set of gloves from the supply cabinet, she said they were out, though Silas saw the unopened box just 3 feet behind her desk chair. At their 10-minute break, everyone sat in silence. No one talked. The vending machines hadn't been restocked in over a week. The water cooler was empty. Drew pulled a bottle from his backpack and handed it to Shonda without saying a word. Silas leaned his back against the wall and stared at the floor. How long's it been like this? He asked quietly. Shonda pushed her curls behind her ear. This bad, maybe a year. Since they switched district managers. Tanya got real comfortable once nobody came around. Lewis nodded. She's been running this place like a ghost town, doesn't train anyone, covers for the guys she likes, cuts hours if you get injured or speak up. Silas turned to Marcus. Why hasn't anyone reported it? Marcus exhaled slowly. You think HR listens? They call Tanya. Tanya denies it, then she cuts your hours or schedules you for nights only or not at all. Silas clenched his jaw. That night, things escalated. Halfway through the second trailer, Tanya came out from the office for the first time. She yelled across the dock. Drew, you didn't wrap that pallet tight enough. Do it again. And don't take all night. He was already halfway finished with the next one. He turned, frustrated. That's not even my section. Kenny wrapped that one. Tanya walked straight up to him, her voice sharp. Don't talk back to me. You screw up, you fix it, or don't come back tomorrow. Drew stood there, stunned. Kenny stepped forward. It was me, I wrapped it. Tanya didn't flinch. Then both of you can leave if you're gonna waste time arguing. Silas stepped forward, heart pounding. That's enough. Tanya turned, eyebrows raised. Excuse me? You're threatening workers for mistakes they didn't make. You ignore safety issues. You don't support your team. And you haven't left that chair for 3 days. Tanya narrowed her eyes. Who the hell do you think you are? Silas took off his glasses. I'm Silas Langford. The room fell silent. Tanya's mouth opened, then closed again. Lewis stared. Wait, what? I built this company with my father. I've been undercover the last 3 nights to see what's really happening here. He turned to the crew. And now I have. Tanya stammered. This is a setup." "No," Silas said. "This is overdue." He turned toward the crew. "You've been abandoned by leadership. That ends now." He looked back at Tanya. "You're done, clock out, you won't be coming back." She didn't argue, just walked to the office, grabbed her bag and left. Silas turned to the team. "I'll be here the rest of the week. We're getting more staff in. We're fixing that roof. And no one's losing hours for telling the truth." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Didn't expect that." "I didn't expect what I saw here," Silas replied, "but I promise I'm not walking away from it." Outside, the rain picked up. But for the first time all week, the loading dock didn't feel like a dead end. It felt like the beginning of something better. By the following evening, Silas had already made 3 calls before stepping foot inside Warehouse 11 again. First, to HR, informing them of Tanya's termination and instructing them to begin a formal audit of all disciplinary actions and hour reductions that had occurred under her supervision. Second, to the regional facilities manager, demanding maintenance crews be dispatched to repair the roof leaks and restore the HVAC system. Third, to a staffing agency, requesting temporary workers to ease the burden on the existing crew for now. He didn't tell the night shift team about any of this just yet. Promises were easy. Changes had to be seen. When he walked into the warehouse that night, he didn't wear the disguise. There was no point. The word had gotten out. Shonda was already by the loading dock, pulling her hair back with a rubber band. She noticed him and gave a cautious nod. Inside, Kenny was adjusting the pallet jack wheels while Lewis leaned against a crate, ankle wrapped in an elastic brace. Marcus showed up last, hoodie damp from the drizzle outside. He looked at Silas for a long moment, then motioned toward the back trailer. "You sticking around or just checking in?" "I'm working," Silas said. "I'm not done here." Marcus gave a quiet chuckle, not mocking, more surprised. "All right then." They got to work. The trailer that night was packed with irregular inventory oversized boxes, unmarked crates, oddly shaped bundles that looked like someone had just tossed them in without care. It was the kind of load that normally caused headaches, especially without proper equipment. And the equipment wasn't ready. The hydraulic lift had been left in a corner, one wheel jammed at an angle. No one had touched it in weeks, probably because Tanya never approved maintenance requests. Silas knelt down beside it, inspecting the damage. "Why hasn't this been fixed?" he asked. Kenny stood nearby, wiping his hands on his pants. "I submitted a work order, twice. Tanya said it was low priority." Silas didn't respond. He stood and walked straight to the office. Inside, the filing cabinet groaned when he pulled it open. Most of the forms were unsigned. Some were missing pages. Several maintenance requests had been stuffed into the back, never processed. He returned to the dock carrying a small stack. Marcus glanced over as he passed. "That what I think it is? Every ignored request I could find," Silas said, setting them on a folding table. "We're fixing all of it, starting with this lift." They spent 15 minutes realigning the wheel. Shonda found a rusted wrench in a tool bin, and Kenny used a length of wire to temporarily hold the brake in place. It wasn't perfect, but it moved. They used the lift to haul the first oversized crate from the trailer. As they worked, Silas noticed something else Drew wasn't there. "Where's the kid?" he asked. Marcus didn't look up. "Didn't come back after yesterday, said he couldn't trust anything here." Silas nodded slowly. He didn't blame him. Around 9, the rain picked up again. The leak above the brake area had grown worse, dripping steadily onto the already stained linoleum. No one said anything. They just sat away from the drip, eating sandwiches or sipping from water bottles they'd brought from home. Silas sat down next to Lewis. "You doing all right with that ankle?" "Hurts," Lewis said. "But the wrap helps. I'll get through it." "I've arranged for backup workers. Should be here by the weekend. You'll be able to take a few days if you need." Lewis looked at him carefully. "You sure? I'm not offering it if I'm not." Kenny spoke from across the table. "You really didn't know things were this bad?" Silas shook his head. "The reports I got were filtered, sanitized." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Then you've got a bigger problem than Tanya." Silas didn't argue. He knew it was true. They got back to work after the break, tackling the second trailer. This one was filled with smaller boxes, but half of them were mislabeled. Someone had packed electronics in boxes marked as clothing. It took time to sort them correctly, which slowed everything down. Shonda pointed to a barcode that had been scribbled over with a marker. "This is happening a lot. We report it, but it just keeps coming." "Where do these come from?" Silas asked. Lewis answered. "Usually from Warehouse 14. We've been flagging their loads for months." Silas made a mental note. That location was next. As they unloaded the last of the boxes, something unexpected happened. A man walked in through the side entrance, middle-aged, wearing a company windbreaker and holding a clipboard. He didn't introduce himself, just walked straight to the dock and started writing things down. "Excuse me," Silas said, stepping over. "Who are you?" "Greg, district supervisor." He barely looked up, doing a spot check. "No one notified us of an audit, didn't need to." "Just checking shift output levels." Silas stared at him. "This crew just cleared 2 overloaded trailers with half the staff they need, no equipment, and a leaking roof." Greg snorted. "Yeah, and yesterday they only cleared 1. What changed?" Silas didn't answer. Greg looked around. "Where's Tanya? She's usually running this shift." "She's gone." Greg looked up sharply. "Since when?" "Since yesterday. I fired her." Greg's eyes narrowed. "You don't have the authority to. I'm Silas Langford." Greg froze. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Silas stepped forward. "You were the one approving her reports, weren't you?" Greg hesitated. "I reviewed them, yes." "Then you knew about the hour cuts, the maintenance neglect, the ignored safety violations." Greg shifted uncomfortably. "We get dozens of reports a week." "I can't investigate everyone." "You don't need to investigate when it's coming from the same location every month for a year. You need to pay attention." Greg looked like he wanted to disappear. Silas didn't give him the chance. "You're on administrative leave, effective immediately. HR will contact you tomorrow." Greg tried to protest, but Silas cut him off. "This crew deserves better than someone who treats their work like numbers on a spreadsheet." Greg left without another word. When the door closed, no one spoke for a moment. Then Shonda let out a slow breath. "Didn't think I'd see that happen this week." Marcus adjusted the pallet jack handle. "Didn't think I'd see any of this." Silas looked around at the crew. "This is just the beginning. We're rewriting how these warehouses are managed, starting here." He turned to Kenny. "I want you to help oversee incoming shipments starting next week. You've got an eye for detail." Kenny blinked. "Seriously?" "Yes, and Shonda, we're bringing in new supervisors. I want you involved in their training. You understand what this place actually needs." "All right," she said slowly. "Yeah, I can do that." Silas looked at Marcus last. "I don't know what your long-term plans are, but if you ever want to move into operations, I'd back you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You offering a promotion? I'm offering an option." Marcus nodded. "Let me think on it." They finished stacking the final pallet. Outside, the rain started to fade. Inside, the warehouse still looked rough, peeling paint, flickering lights, uneven floors, but there was a shift in the room, not in the walls. In them, no one cheered, no one celebrated. But they stayed, and that meant more than words ever could. By the end of the week, the air in Warehouse 11 had shifted, not dramatically, but enough to feel. The work was still hard. The loading dock still echoed with the thud of crates and the whine of pallet jacks. But the silence that used to hang over every shift had started to break. The temporary crew arrived early Saturday evening. 4 new hires, all in uniform, all equipped with safety gear. They were green, asking questions, moving cautiously, but they showed up ready, and that alone bought them a kind of respect. Silas kept his sleeves rolled, hands dirty, and eyes open. He rotated between teams without drawing attention to himself. When the new guys struggled with a particularly awkward shipment of metal shelving, Marcus stepped in to guide them through it, not because he was asked, but because there was finally someone worth helping. At one point, Silas spotted Lewis sitting on a crate, ankle resting on a small cooler. "You're not scheduled tonight," Silas said. I know, Lewis replied. Just wanted to see if the roof finally stopped leaking. Silas gestured upward. It has for now. Crew sealed both spots this morning. Full repairs scheduled next week. Lewis gave a tired nod. Good. He didn't linger. Just stood, gave a brief wave, and left through the side door. Inside the break room, 2 vending machines had been restocked. The water cooler had been replaced. A laminated schedule hung beside the clock in terminal, showing clear shift rotations for the next 3 weeks. No last-minute cuts. No unexplained removals. Kenny stood in front of it, arms crossed, reading. You good with the new layout? Silas asked. It's fair, Kenny said. Tighter but fair. Let me know if it stops being either. Kenny looked at him. You're not going to vanish again, are you? No, Silas said. Not anymore. By 10, the crew had cleared the first trailer. The second arrived late, half an hour behind schedule, and with it, a driver unfamiliar to the team. Tall, lean, and impatient, he leaned against the cab with crossed arms as Silas approached. You're the drop for 11, Silas asked. Got stuck 2 hours outside Denton, delay on load-in, not my fault. Nobody said it was. Where's the dock supervisor? Silas gestured behind him. You're speaking to him. The driver blinked. Thought you were one of the crew. Silas glanced back at the team. I am. The man didn't respond, just popped the trailer lock and stepped aside. By midnight, the shift slowed. Most of the team had taken their scheduled break. Shonda stayed behind on the dock, reorganizing a stack of boxes that had shifted during unloading. One of the new temps, Devon, stood nearby, watching her work. You don't need to do that, Silas said, walking over. It's easier to find things when they're not leaning like a house of cards, Shonda replied. Devon hesitated. I was going to help, I just didn't want to mess anything up. Shonda looked at him. Then help. They worked together, Devon learning fast under her direction. Silas watched for a moment, then stepped away. In the hallway, he found Marcus leaning against the wall outside the office, arms folded, eyes on the floor. You all right? Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, just thinking. You've been offered the operations assistant role, Silas said. No pressure, but I need a decision soon. Marcus looked up. How many hours? 40, guaranteed, benefits, training included. Marcus didn't answer right away. I've been doing 3 jobs for almost 2 years. Feels strange thinking about just one. Silas leaned against the opposite wall. Strange good or strange bad? I don't know yet. Take the weekend. Let me know Monday. Marcus gave a slight nod. All right. As Silas turned to leave, Marcus spoke again. You're the first one who asked me what I needed, not what I could give. Silas didn't respond, didn't need to. The next morning, Silas returned to the main office. His executive team waited around the conference table, folders open, laptops humming. He looked across the faces people he'd seen weekly, people who had missed everything. He didn't sit. This company got too comfortable with distance, he began. I included. We stopped seeing the people who keep us running. We buried problems under reports and averages. The room stayed quiet. We're restructuring oversight. No more single managers running warehouses unchecked. Every location will have a rotating compliance officer. Every shift will have a dedicated point of contact. No exceptions. A few heads nodded. Most stayed still. Warehouse 11 was held together by people who weren't being heard. That's over. He paused. And if any of you think this is temporary, think again. After the meeting, Silas returned to his office. His inbox was full. His phone kept buzzing, but he didn't touch either. Instead, he pulled out a sheet of paper and started writing a list of every warehouse, every shift, every manager. He'd visit them all, not in disguise this time. That Monday, Marcus walked through the breakroom door in clean work pants and a new company polo. He didn't say much, just picked up the clipboard from the dock desk and started reviewing the inbound manifest. Kenny walked past him, eyebrows raised. Looks good on you. Marcus didn't look up. Don't get used to it. Shonda grinned. Too late. Near the back, Devon and one of the temp workers started unwrapping the first pallet. Drew wasn't there. He'd taken a job at a different warehouse closer to home. Silas had called him personally, offering to cover 2 weeks of transit if he ever wanted to come back. Drew had thanked him but respectfully declined. Some damage couldn't be undone, but it could be stopped. As the dock filled with the usual sounds of labor clanks, beeps, the thump of cardboard, Silas stood near the edge, watching. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't leaving either.